YouTube, Sister K here. I'm back to do another video. This one addresses the concept of the godly wife. And I thought that was sort of an interesting question for someone to put forth. And so I thought about it for a while and prayed about it a little bit. And so this is my answer. Um, Being a godly wife is not something that happened overnight. I didn't just wake up one morning and say, okay, I'm going to do this thing. It was a really long process. And it started with just the concept in general. First, I had to get used to being a wife. And my husband and I were not godly people when we were married. And that the godliness came in through our children. And so that in itself was a process. But as we were trying to get our children under what we thought was a good influence, we also began to see and hear and learn and so forth and become convinced that there is a God and that he's the only one, etc., etc. Um, and so during that process, of course, there's these concepts out there in the church and pictures, people have a vision of what they think a godly wife is like. And they think of her as meek and submissive and beaten down, and she doesn't have a voice of her own, and she doesn't have a life of her own. She's just this entity that bears children and does whatever her husband says. And that is out there, and it's a big concept. But it's also not a true concept. It's not a real concept. People are people. No one could be happy just living like that, being an object and not a real human being. So I want to dispel that misconception right off the bat. Um, First off, I'm not beaten down. I don't. Most of you probably haven't met me in person, but one, I'm not the kind of person you can beat down. I'm about 5'8" and 160, and I have a little bit of Irish in me, and so you get me going, and let's just say that that's not going to happen. But that's also not how my husband treats me. The word is very definite about all this, and so being a godly wife also is about reading the word. The word describes just very directly and straightforward the kind of person you are supposed to be. You are supposed to be modest. Um, it also talks about that the things that you should be busy doing with your life on an everyday basis. And it's the Proverbs 31 woman. And I'm not going to go through it with you. You go to Proverbs 31 and read it for yourself. Um, let's just say this. You're not supposed to be sitting around getting your nails painted. I'll just put it that way. You are supposed to be industrious and going about the business of keeping your house and taking care of your husband. For older women like myself now, one of our other duties is to teach the younger women. Teach the younger women in the way how to honor their husbands, how to take care for their children. And I even did this kind of counseling recently to some ladies who were talking to me about careers and themselves and what they wanted to do with their lives and everything. And I reminded them, yeah, that's all well and good, but if you're going to have children, it is your duty to raise your children, and you're going to do the best job of it. And we are uniquely gifted to do this anyway. So if you are completely involved in your child raising, you're going to have outstanding children. And to me, that's a really fulfilling thing. I love my kids. Um, Now back to the whole how the relationship works. First of all, if you're a godly woman, the number one person in your life is God. And that's also a concept that a lot of women don't understand. They want to continue to live in the earthly realm, and so to them, their earthly family is supposed to be the number one thing. And you are to be a faith-based person first and foremost. And so your relationship with God, it should be the most important one in your life. And it should guide you, but it's also your comfort and your knowledge that you are having this relationship with the creator of the universe who has set everything in his own way, and following that way makes your life work really well. I don't know how else to describe it. It's smooth sailing. Let's just put it that way. As soon as you get involved in the earthly side of things, it gets bumpy and rocky and strange. Um, and I say smooth sailing, it's not like when you're a believer, nothing ever happens to you. It's just that your faith is in God, and so he helps you through those rocky times, and he reassures you that everything's going to be fine. And that's the only difference between having him as the one in your life versus just trying to depend on your earthly skills and everything to get you through. And so when you are putting God first, then your relationship with your family becomes even more rich. It becomes even better because your family is God's gift to you. And so you look at them with even more value. You look at the husband he uniquely picked out for you from the entire world, knowing that you two would make a perfect fit together. And so that can bring you joy. And then the blessing that your children are, again, is something that is described in the word and cannot be expressed in human terms. Just how wonderful having a family and the joy that it brings when God is the overarching, um, not theme, but just your whole life is related to the Lord. And the Lord is the master of your entire family. It's just a wonderful thing. And so I hope that's answered the question. I hope it gives you some things to think about in your life and that you will get into your word and read it and be talking to your Father every day. All right, bye, YouTubes.